Let's send it out now to Matt Gelb, who was nice enough to wake up early for me in New York, the city that never sleeps, and maybe neither does Matt. Matt, how are you on this Saturday morning?
Pretty good. Needed some sleep. It's been a long trip, and it's been a long first half for the Phillies. Really, I mean, any way you look at it.
Just trying to get to the pole, right, and just trying to get to the break. And certainly, as this last sequence is gone, Miami, then Atlanta, then now New York, and the game in Atlanta, they made it the night game. So much for trying to get them out of there. In fact, so much so that you tweeted out and wrote about the fact that they sent Vince Velasquez ahead of time, trying to just counter and keep him fresh.
Yeah, I mean, this happens during the season. I mean, I think. There were a lot of people who weren't pleased that it was a night game. But, I mean, hey, look, I mean, I think their strategy yesterday with DeGrom was, they told the players no need, to come when they normally do, which is maybe sometimes for guys around noon or 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. They told guys don't come to the ballpark until 4 or 5. There won't be batting practice. It's the old show and go thing. And, sometimes it's best maybe just to not overthink it, to try something different. And look, Scott Kingery hits the first pitch out of the ballpark, and they hung in there against DeGrom, and then they explode for 5 runs in the 9th inning. And honestly, it goes down as one of their better wins. I mean, anytime you can beat a guy like DeGrom, they had faced him quite a few times in the last 5-6 years, and they'd only won 2 games that he had started before. I think the total was maybe 2 out of 15, I think, before last night. So they won the game. I mean, it's a big one. They have Nola going Sunday. They have Arrieta tonight, and they got to win this series. I mean, and if anything, maybe you can never say they need to sweep someone, but I mean, 3 wins here against the Mets would really go a long way in making up for losing the series to the Marlins, for example, to start this road trip.
Yeah, you tweeted out at one point, JT Realmuto, 2 enormous hits, Phillies in business in the 9th. It's a game they need to win. And, if folks out there are listening, you should follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Gelb, MattGelb, all together, because the running tweets are worth the price of admission alone, just to get your observations of, where the Phillies are. Doesn't it seem, Matt, that there's always a point in every game, though, whether the Phillies end up winning the game or not, that even you guys, the scribes, as I call you in the press box, are just questioning, really? Knapp here? That's who you go to? I mean, that was the one that I saw explode on Twitter last night. Was that a move that you questioned?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think, it's less about the player and more about the situation. I mean, look, Andrew Knapp is the backup catcher, and he's the backup catcher to JT Realmuto, and that means that they don't really need a great backup catcher because he's not going to be playing a lot. I mean, that's the reality of it. JT Realmuto is going to play more games than the average catcher. He might play the most games of any catcher this season. It's because he can handle it. It's because he's really good, and you want him in the lineup, and he's willing to do it. So Knapp serves a purpose, and that purpose is just, backup catcher insurance. He really shouldn't have that many at-bats, not that many at-bats in big spots. But here he is in the 7th inning of a tie game with 2 outs and runners on second and third, and he's pinch hitting against Jacob DeGrom, and really, I mean, it's just not a fair spot for him. It's not. I mean, he's the backup catcher. His job is to be insurance for Realmuto, and his job isn't to be, one of their best pinch hitting options in a tight spot in a game. And it speaks to me to just another need they have, and we can debate the various things they need the most, but they need a better bench. I mean, it probably ranks below needing a couple pitchers and maybe needing some kind of jolt for the lineup, but they need a better bench. I mean, if Andrew Knapp is their second best pinch hitting option because they'd used Brad Miller earlier in the game to pinch hit, it's a problem. And we saw later in the game, Sean Rodriguez did get a pinch hit shot later in the game, and he got an RBI single in that 9th inning. They wanted a left-handed hitter there to face DeGrom, but at some point, the side of the hitter really matters less than the quality of the hitter, and Knapp just didn't really have a shot there, and it wasn't a fair spot for him.
Matt Gelb's with us, Phillies beat writer for The Athletic. And, Matt, I know this, too. What was it, not even 2 weeks ago or something? The heat was turned up big time on Gabe Kapler. So Matt Klentak comes out and says, hey, Gabe Kapler's not going anywhere. I have confidence in this team. I'm not sure that's what the fan base wanted to hear. As you mentioned, there's so many places that they have holes to fill or things they could shore up. Do you put some of that blame then on Klentak for overvaluing what he has?
I mean, certainly when you look at things, I mean, this has to fall a lot on the front office. And I mean, this has been a combination of a lot of things. I mean, you know, they went out and acquired former All-Stars who are in their primes in right field, shortstop, and catcher. And I would say that all three of those guys have underperformed here in the first half. And I know it's not like the sexiest thing for people to hear, but I mean, you know, they need their better players to play better, their best players to play better. I mean, they need Bryce Harper and Gene Segura and JT Realmuto to have big second halves, and if they don't, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. And really, the entire offseason and the entire roster construction and going into the season was based on those guys having big years for the Phillies, and they gave up a lot in terms of money and prospects to get all three of those guys, and they've been disappointing. I just don't know there's any way around it. I don't know if there's any way, you know, even if they go out and acquire a starting pitcher, two relievers, you know, they're not going to make the playoffs unless Segura, Harper, and Realmuto have better second halves. And now, is that on the GM? I mean, yeah, he acquired them. I think, you know, there's certain things that, you know, when he made all these acquisitions, I mean, you know, he essentially won the offseason. And I know people make jokes about how, you know, the teams that usually win the offseason are not the ones that are winning in October. And that's fair, I think. But, you know, at the time that all those moves were made, I think most people are in agreement. I mean, these are good moves. I mean, the Phillies are going for it. They've been aggressive in the offseason. They acquired some really good players in their primes, and it just hasn't worked out. So, you know, I think the onus is on the GM now to you know, figure a way out here. And I'm not so sure there's like a magic potion. He's not going to be able to go out and make one or two trades right now that's going to fix everything. So, you know, they need these guys to have better second halves. And it really comes down to that.
No magic pill, no magic potion. But for you, Matt Gelb's with us, our guest on the Pete Thompson Show at 97.3 ESPN. Everybody likes to point to the starting rotation, Matt, and that, you know, guys aren't having the years that they had in the past. Now, Nola certainly seems like he is course correcting, but Jake Arrieta, is he the same or less than he was before? And then I guess my real question to you is, where's the drop off for you? Like, where does it, you know, if you went out into the ocean and you were here in the beach in Margate or Atlantic City or Ventnor or Margate or Northfield or any of these towns, beach towns, not Northfield, but, you know, Wildwood, any of them, when you go out into the ocean, you know, you get about far enough out, boom, it just drops off, right? Where does the Phillies rotation drop off for you to that boom, continental shelf, you know?
Probably after Nola. I mean, you know, but I don't know if this is exclusive to the Phillies. I mean, like look around Major League Baseball season, and every team has a pitching problem. I mean, it's as simple as that. And now certainly that is not an excuse for the problems the Phillies have had. I think, you know, the Phillies' problems are more extreme than we've seen across the league. But I mean, it's certainly following a trend, and it starts to make you wonder. You know, look, they didn't make any changes to the rotation after last season. They went into the season with the same rotation. And I think their idea was that, well, we're going to have a really deep bullpen. We've got ways to, you know, to really lessen the burden of some of those starters like Pivetta and Velasquez and Eflin. You know, if they give us 5 or 6 innings every fifth day, then great. I mean, we have the bullpen depth and the quality out there to kind of take care of it from there. And, you know, then they have a lot of bullpen injuries, and then they start to have ineffectiveness from the rotation that Disney, they can't even get into the 5th inning. So, you know, you really start to wonder about the plan they had in the off season in terms of going with what they had from last year and not making any upgrades there. And, you know, they're in a tough spot there because every team is looking for pitching right now. I mean, every contender. I mean, even the Houston Astros, for example. I mean, they're looking for one or two starters right now at the deadline. Every team needs at least one starting pitcher and probably two relievers, and there's just not that many out there who are available for trade, at least in the kind of caliber that you would want to give up good young talent for. And I don't know. I mean, this is a league-wide problem, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how teams sort of how to approach it. I look at it this way, Pete. I say that, going into the season, we expected the pitching to be sort of so-so, middle of the pack. We didn't think they were going to be one of the best in the league, but we did think that the offense was going to be one of the best in the league. We thought that this team would out-hit a lot of their pitching mistakes. Not all of the pitching mistakes, but a lot of them. And if you look at, relative to the expectations, what unit has underperformed the most so far, I think it has to be the offense. I think I expected a lot more from that unit, and I think that, they were just going to make up for some of the pitching problems, and at times they have, just not enough.
Yeah,
and I think, and we've learned that, Zach Eflin and Nick Pivetta and Vince Velasquez, maybe they're not major league rotation pieces, and that has a wider effect certainly on their future plans too.
The shelf right after Nola. I like your answer to that, and I like some of the tweets too. Where the Braves 5 more home runs on Thursday night, and at that point it was 150 home runs allowed in 87. Let's think. Last night, did that number go up last night?
One homer, yeah. Pete Alonso hit a home run. Yeah.
So 151 now in 88 games, right? And people are just talking about that's an indictment. That's the article, right? An indictment of how the Phillies planned both before and during the season, of higher expectations that haven't come to fruition. And your answer was, it's complicated. Like that, you gave the Facebook 2-word response.
Yeah, and it's complicated because everyone in the league is giving up home runs, and they can't, you can't shy away from that. There's going to be records broken all over the place. But the fact of the matter is that the Phillies have allowed, I think, maybe like 25 or 30 more homers than the next closest National League team, and that's the Rockies. That's extreme. I mean, that's what I'm saying is, like, you can chalk up some of the pitching problems to the fact that the ball is juiced or that, the hitters have caught up. No doubt. I have no doubt about that. But that doesn't explain everything here. I mean, their problems are more extreme, I think. And at some point, you can point to you can point to the front office, you can point to the coaching staff, you can point to the manager. At some point, you look at the talent and you say, maybe these guys just aren't major league starters. Maybe these guys aren't fit to be in a rotation every fifth day. And I think we had questions about some of those guys coming into the season even before the fact, right?
Absolutely. Well, and listen, they may not be major league stars, but you are a Major League Baseball writer, and I know if the Phillies got in at 4 in the morning, what time did Matt Gelb get into the hotel?
Well, I made it hard on myself, because I took a morning flight from Atlanta to Newark, and I shouldn't have done Newark, and got delayed out of Atlanta, and I ended up having a day where I took about 6 different forms of transportation, making my way from Atlanta Hartsfield Airport to Citi Field in Queens. But it's all good, and it's part of the life.
Hey, man, well, I can't thank you enough because you certainly were show and go for me today. You did not blow off the show. You probably said to yourself, oh, why did I book this? But I hope you had fun on the Pete Thompson Show. And when we get, down the road, say September, and, we'll see where the Phillies are at, I hope I can have you on one more time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Matt Gelb with us here on the Pete Thompson Show. Thank you, sir. Get some rest.